What is up, everybody? My name is Aaron Knoll, and welcome back to the final regular movie battleground of the year. Obviously, we have a couple exhibitions coming your way before the new year, but this is the final regular match of the year. And I feel like in the course of the community, whether it's obviously the thing that I think most people watch, which is the Schmodown, or if you're a fan league or anything else that you do, I feel like it is customary to end the year with somebody going for the title. And since we are nowhere fucking near that yet, I figured the next best thing was to end the year with the guy who is the honorary champ because he won the title before the show was dropped on hiatus and gets to keep the title till we have a new one, going up against the guy who got paired against him because he won a match in a tournament where he was randomly assigned to play him. If you're following my logic. That's right, guys. Tonight we have Hot Fuzz Joe Farrelly, 2-0 off of 2 solid wins, taking on Chad Webb, who himself is 2-0, coming off of a very tough match against Austin Howe, proving his worth more than ever in that one. And these two guys, this is one to be excited for. This is also the first match of our quarterfinals. So the winner of this match is the first person who will be secured their spot in the semifinals, meaning from there on, a title shot is not too far away. But let's stop vamping. Let's stop building it up. Let's just get to the match. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing first with a record of 2 wins and no defeats, he is Chad Webb coming in. Chad, how's it going, sir?
Hey, it's going great. I've been preparing for this match. I know I have a lot, to work against today. I've ever since I've heard of Movie Battlegrounds, jumped in here, I've heard, oh, Joe's the champ. Joe is the guy that won a thing a while ago. But I've seen his matches. He hasn't lost it. Dude is really good. He's fire. I've watched his matches, and I've just been trying to up my game because, while Austin was a really, really tough competitor, I feel like this one's going to be a little more chill. I think Joe is a little less, in your face like Austin is. But, that doesn't mean he's not going to bring his arguments, and he's going to, have strong ones. So, I'm hoping I can bring my own and handle myself against him, maybe come out with a W. We'll see.
Absolutely. Definitely probably one of the 2 toughest back-to-back to get that match and this match.
Yeah.
But if anyone's going to hold their own, I think it will be you. And as you know, you never know what can happen. I'm going to go ahead and send you to the back and bring in your opponent. Also coming in with a record of 2 wins, no defeats. He is the honorary champion of Movie Battleground, honoring the title he had won previously. He is also a man that a lot of you know because he is everywhere when it comes to trivia, and he's just too good at it to not be noticed. He is Joe Hot Fuzz Farrelly. Joe, how's it going, sir?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's just gone midnight here, but that's always usually the time that works for me. I think I did my first ever one of these at 2 o'clock in the morning, arguing about TV. But I've always been a fan of this. This debates where I won my first ever title in this community here at TMG for TV debates. So it's got a little special place for me. TMG always will have a special place for me because it's where I've won 3 titles so far, and it's where I won my first. It's where I won my first trivia title. It's where I won my first debate title. So yeah, it's very special for me, and I don't plan on trying to losing them anytime soon. Even if I have to claw my way to get this one back.
Absolutely. I understand that sentiment 100%. Not that I've ever won a title in anything. I just understand not wanting to lose whatever you hold precious.
And of course, I'm happy to play Chad as well because, as we all know, TMG, he is my now teammate in TMG teams.
That's true.
And I noticed just one of the guys sort of came in to this community a while after I did, and he just had a really good attitude. He's got a really good energy. So it's just always good to be on a stream with him, whether he's co-hosting or playing against or playing with.
Absolutely. Well, that makes this match way friendlier. I didn't know you guys were teammates. You'd think I'd pay attention to the things I help out with a little more, but that's nothing new. Kevin will tell you that. He's in the back. And we'll go ahead then and bring Chad in and not waste any more time.
We'll be slight enemies for a good hour or so, and then we'll go back to being
friendly debate.
friends.
It's all good. It's all good.
That's very cute that you think this will be over in an hour. That's optimistic.
I like these questions. I like the choices. So let's get to it.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. Movie Battleground is a game of debate. That's the wrong one because I went and messed up the order. Oh, fuck it. I know what the rules are. Movie Battleground is a best of 5 rounds. It is a first to 3 points wins. If a person, each round is worth 1 point. If a competitor happens to get 3 points in a row, that'll be a victory by knockout. If it happens to be a 2-2 tie at the end of the 4 rounds, we will go to the blind round. Since I played the wrong one first, I'll play the wrong one now as well. In the main 4 debates, the competitors were given their questions ahead of time. They've had as much time to prep as we could possibly give them, and then they used as much of that as they liked. The way that this will work is they will get 1 minute to open their argument. That will be followed by 2 minutes of time to kind of expand and explain out a bit more what they're going for. Then there will be a 4-minute open debate where they can go back and forth and hit each other as much as possible with some points before that will be followed by a 1-minute closing. With that said, do you guys have any questions for me, or are we ready to go?
Nope.
All right, guys. So with that, let's go ahead and get into question number 1. And I figured since we are shortly before the Christmas season, why don't we get into that Christmas spirit? Obviously, we do have a Christmas exhibition match coming up soon. And so I figured let's kind of get a question in here to kind of show you what that might be all about. And the question that we have is, what is the best Santa Claus in film of all time? Or I guess who really is how it should be phrased, but I was never the best with the who, what's, and whys, so we're going to say what is. But with that said, Joe, because you are the champ, you were deemed the favorite of this match. You chose to go first on questions 2 and 4. So by that nature, Chad, you will be going first on question 1. As I go ahead and bring up the timer, it will start ticking when you speak.
Miracle on 34th Street is a Christmas classic. It holds a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes and was nominated for Best Picture. It also features the greatest Santa Claus ever put to screen. Edmund Gwynn is the embodiment of the true classic Santa Claus as Kris Kringle. He wears the classic Santa suit. He is protective of children and cares for them most of all. He enchants a young Natalie Wood into a belief in magic. He even reaches the inner child of adults like Doris Walker and Fred Gailey. Santa gives the gift of change and perspective to other characters, touches the hearts of cynical people and cynical business, and makes viewers' Christmases magical every year. Edmund even won Best Supporting Actor at the Academy Awards for this performance. Miracle on 34th Street is not a Santa Claus origin story. Kris Kringle is Santa Claus the entire movie. It's the performance people look forward to seeing every year. Edmund Gwynn as Kris Kringle is the best Santa Claus in film of all time.
All right, and as the timer on the 1 minute counts down, Joe, the timer will continue for you when you start speaking.
I think the thing about Christmas movies, especially the ones that feature an interpretation of Santa Claus, is that they must truly capture the spirit of Christmas. And I think you look throughout history of Christmas movies that have included Santa Claus, they all sort of have the same sort of generic vibe of someone who is passionate and cares about bringing joy to others. But sometimes to be the best, you have to be different from the rest. And that's why I picked J.K. Simmons's Claus from the Netflix animated movie Claus. This portrayal goes deeper than any we've seen before. And instead of doing what many others have done and show Santa as the idealized version of one that simply takes joy from bringing happiness to others, it goes further and it delves into the why. Why does this person do this? You know, and what it gives us is something that's not only truly inspirational and really touching, it's also something that is as true as it is heartbreaking. And I think that makes it the best, is because it stands out. It is different, but it's also the same. It gives us something new that we've not seen before. And I just think the whole portrayal as well as the performance is remarkable.
And time. All right, Chad, back to you for 2 minutes.
Santa Claus is a symbol. He's a force for goodwill and Christmas cheer. He encourages people to be better. His biggest concern is to make sure children are happy. He wants to give them the perfect gifts for Christmas, like a dream home or even just making them feel special. Edmund Gwynn's Santa Claus is the perfect example of this ideal. He is very protective of children. He scolds a Santa who is drunk at the Macy's Day Parade. He scolds Mr. Sawyer for telling young Alfred that he's crazy for wanting to dress like Santa and make children's Christmas magical. He shows young Natalie Wood how to be a kid and use her imagination. You're only a kid once. One of the best things Santa does in this movie is fighting cynicism. People wonder if Kringle is truly Santa because of cynicism, but through his actions, he makes people believe in him. People wonder, Fred Gailey puts his career on the line, actually, in order to prove by law that Kris Kringle is Santa Claus. Children write letter in droves to Kris because they believe him to be the true Santa. Then he performs his great miracle to give the Walkers and Mr. Gailey a home they've always wanted, leaving no doubt. And Klaus, the driving force for change in Smearensburg is Jesper, not Klaus. Klaus is a sad, uninviting figure for a lot of the movie. He doesn't wear the iconic classic Santa suit. He's oddly buff, making me think he'd rather be at the gym than eating cookies. Klaus does make the toys, but it's Jesper who establishes the Santa myths and connects with the children. Klaus is just along for the ride. Klaus actually seemed like he wanted to remain secluded and let the town eat each other rather than helping. He does eventually become Santa, but it took a lot of prodding to get there. We never actually see him as a fully formed Santa. The whole time Klaus is in a suit, Jesper helps him deliver all the toys, and we never actually see him become the mythical Santa that Jesper refers to at the end of the movie.
Are you calling time?
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha. Just wanted to be sure. Okay, bumped it ahead a little too much, but you'll get your time back, Joe, and it will start when you speak.
I believe Klaus is the best because it offers more. The revelation that the toys he makes are because he never had kids and his wife passed away is a real gut punch. But despite that, it still makes all the sense in the world. You know, it's easy to throw in a twist, throw in a revelation, but when that revelation happens and it still makes sense, that really makes something extra special. And it's not just the backstory, it's the inspirational side of his actions. You know, although Jesper is doing that, he is the one that motivates the people of Smearensburg to forgive each other and forget their feud, you know, all through the way he inspires their children. And that is, you know, the true spirit of Santa Claus. You know, I think Edmund Gwenn does give a fantastic performance, but what he's given to work with as Santa is nothing revolutionary and only sort of works on sort of the small scale. It's only the small group of people you see him meet that he inspires. You know, he gets joy from bringing happiness, but, you know, so does Santa in the Christmas Chronicles or in Arthur Christmas, Santa Claus is Coming to Town or the Polar Express. You know, there's no real difference from the other Santas. You know, it may have came first, it may have been what spawned it, but that doesn't necessarily make it the best. You know, I think, you know, you mentioned the movie ratings, and I think they're kind of irrelevant to the Santa. It's not about the movie, it's about the Santa within that movie. You know, he touches the hearts of adults, but so does Klaus, you know, but it's through the way he inspires the children. You know, we're talking about the best Santa, not necessarily the best actor who's performed as Santa. It's the best portrayal overall, the script, the actions around him, the people around him, what happens, the plot of the movie. And I think you say he encourages people to be better, but Mr. Sawyer doesn't change. He's the main basic villain of the movie, and he doesn't really change. You know, he does all this inspirational stuff, but the true villains are, you look at Claus and you look at the way the two families are feuding against each other, but you see through the inspiration, you see them change. You see him affect that change. He does affect, whilst Edmund Gwenn does affect change in other people, the person who really should change doesn't change. And I think that's the issue. That's if you want to show me the inspiring story, you don't really get that with Edmund Gwenn's portrayal and Edmund Gwenn Santa in Miracle on 34th Street. But with J.K. Simmons as Klaus, you see him inspire those people. You see the way that change goes. Yes, he has Jesper to push him, but you have to accept that because of such the devastating past that he has had. But that's what creates that inspiration. It's because he makes the toys and he ends up gifting them to the kids because he never did that for his own kids.
All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will restart when somebody speaks.
I mean, look, both of these movies are fantastic and highly rated. I'm not even like trying to say that, one is like so much better than the other, but Klaus is so new. I think that, this Santa's just been inspiring people for decades. And then you say that, like, Edmund Gwynn doesn't change people. I highly disagree. Maybe Mr. Sawyer doesn't see it yet at the end of the film. Some people, it takes a lot more to actually reach them, but he does reach the hearts of Fred Gailey, Doris Walker, Susan Walker. At the end of the film, they get to be a happy family. They come together, that they see that there's more to life than just, business and just, trying to get a career and just being sad about your ex. They actually like come together. And, there's a brilliant line where Fred Gailey says, faith is believing when some common sense tells you not to. Don't you see? It's not just Chris that's on trial. It's everything he stands for. It's kindness and joy and love and all the other intangibles. And sometimes intangibles are like the most important thing in life. And I don't think that any of them get to understand that without Edmund Gwynn in this role.
But you look at Fred Gale's character, and you actually look at the way he speaks to the Walkers, and you see it's more him that's doing the inspiring. He's using Chris as the example, but he is the one that tells, like you said, he uses that quote. He says about what faith is and what believing is, and he's the one that sort of convinces Natalie Wood's character to really sort of see Chris for who he is. The difference is, and you said it yourself. You said that Klaus is a relatively new movie. Miracle on 34th Street. It's this is the version from 1947. It's had that time to gestate. But you look at and Netflix movies are a dime a dozen now. Something new is coming to streaming all the time. But for a portrayal like that in an animated movie on a streaming service to have that effect and to bring such a new dimension to a figure that has stood in history for hundreds of years, and to give us something that we've not seen before, despite all the movies coming out at Christmas every year. This is Santa Claus. This is Santa Claus. We've got Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell's Christmas Chronicles. That's just as new, but it doesn't hit in the way that J.K. Simmons' portrayal as Klaus does. It gives us something new, but not only something new that you go, oh, that's different. I haven't seen that before. Something that you go, it makes all the sense in the world. And he does give that inspiration. He inspires so many people. He inspires the children to bond with each other. Families have been feuding for years upon years and years, and they bond with each other, and that in turn inspires the parents. It's one small act that inspires everything around him, and that really is an incredible
Klaus is definitely different. It's definitely nuanced. I will give you that for the film. I really like the film. It's a good film. It's a good take on the character, but I feel like where I feel like in Klaus, if you don't have Jesper, it all falls apart. This dude is up in his winding path, not helping anyone. And he doesn't want to help anyone. Jesper has to actually force this guy to come help him. And with Edmund Gwynn, Fred Gailey helps him get out of some hot water, but it's Edmund Gwynn's spirit that helps him or see the things that are right in front of him, see that he wants to be with, and he just inspires Susan Walker to just be a kid. Like, he changes her life. And I just feel like on a smaller scale than what Klaus is trying to do.
So to that point, you could say that Fred Gale is just as important to Edmund Gwynn's performance as Jesper is to Klaus.
No, not to the performance, to him fighting the cynicism, maybe, but no, definitely not to the betrayal, because he's Santa Claus from the beginning to the end. There's no change because it's not needed. He's just has that spirit within him, and
that's the thing. He's good and he brings joy just because he is Santa Claus. But sometimes you need more than that. You need to go into the why.
I mean, you do go into the why, and I'll explain that in a second.
And time. I do want to make one comment off that round. I feel like Kurt Russell came under some unnecessary fire there. And I do just want to say Kurt Russell as Santa singing Sexy Santa jazz in a prison cell was definitely an inspiring thing. But with that said, we're going to go on to the closing.
Don't go to prison, kids.
Only if it's with Kurt Russell. Time is on the clock, Chad. It will start when you speak for your final minute.
So at the beginning of the movie, Chris is worried about Christmas. He's worried about the cynicism of people in New York City, and he's worried. He says, seems we're all so busy trying to beat the other fellow and making things go faster and look shinier and cost less than Christmas and I are sort of getting lost in the shuffle. You know, he's kind of feeling that downward trend of the cynicism. It's a very good commentary on, you know, how we are with business these days. But he's been delighting viewers for decades as Santa Claus, making Christmas magical. He fights cynicism and fights to keep the Christmas spirit alive. New Santas refer back to Edmund Gwynn as the classic benchmark. He has the best suit, he's fat, he's jolly, and he loves kids. Edmund Gwynn was actually the Santa Claus at the Macy's Day Parade that year. Natalie Wood, the actress, actually believed he was Santa when she was filming the movie because he was so convincing. Klaus is a very new movie, so hasn't really had time to reach a lot of people. And Edmund Gwynn just did it the best, and he hasn't been topped for 75 years. I think, you know, maybe in a few years, Klaus, but, you know, this one just hasn't been topped. Edmund Gwynn, the GOAT.
All right, and that is time. Joe, you have the final minute.
I think Klaus is the best movie Santa because everything the audience is presented with fits with the spirit of Christmas. It hits on an emotional level and gives something new to a character fully established for well over 100 years. While Edmund Gwenn gives an exceptional performance, the material is, by today's standards, by the numbers portrayal. It shows us a Santa we expect to see and does nothing to subvert that. Subversion of expectations isn't always an indication that something is great, Last Jedi, but when it is executed well and in a way that makes sense with everything we already know, it elevates. You know, Klaus is a beautiful, inspiring movie, and the Klaus within is a beautiful, inspiring character, and it all comes from that portrayal of Santa within. If you're saying that maybe in a few years, Klaus, well, it's still the same movie. Whether it's in a few years or not, it's still the same movie. It's still the same portrayal. You know, the inspiration comes from Klaus' performance. He does inspire the villagers of Smearensburg, which basically are the main villains of the movie, whereas Mr. Sawyer doesn't get that change. Klaus inspires the kids, so does Kris Kringle. It's the same. Kris Kringle is a by the numbers performance. However, Klaus, because it subverts the expectation so well, elevates.
And time. All right, leave it to the TM Geek champion to find a roast for Last Jedi and a Santa round. I'm going to go ahead and send you guys to the back.
I don't hate it. Just don't like it.
You know, good thing it's not in the rest of this match, unless somehow you squeeze it in, which would be impressive. I'm going to go ahead and send you guys to the back and bring in our three judges here joining us on screen. JD, Kevin, Malcolm, welcome. Malcolm, I don't know where you're supposed to be. It looks like you're really fitting in. All right, we're going to go ahead and go to our judges. I don't have any major fact checks for this one, except if you paid attention to my banner, I spelt Edmund Gwynn's name wrong. I realized that after I put it up there, and you know, to edit it, you have to take it down, so it's very obvious. So, aside from that fact check, we are all
just wait for someone to put it down in the comments.
All right. So, JD, I go to you first, as concise as you can get it for me. Who gets your vote, and what was the main thing that sold you?
First off, it was a really good first round. It was very close for me. I think ultimately, I'm coming from a unique perspective in that I don't really celebrate Christmas. So my knowledge is limited. So I just was going slowly on the arguments. Joe sold me. Particularly, you know, I felt that his argument on the, you know, unique perspective, the new perspective after how so many years we've seen Santa Claus kind of sold me. And just because it's new, I don't think is enough of a criticism to kind of knock it.
All right, Kevin, I go to you next, as concise as you can get it for me. Who sold you, and what was the main point?
Yeah, actually, I'm going the other way. I think Chad hit it on the head, and I like the way he put it, that Klaus is not really the driving force in his own movie, and how Miracle is not an origin story. He included quotes and listed out characters and actors. So I went with Chad.
All right, which means Malcolm, I do go to you for the tiebreaker. Who sold you, and what was the main point that did it?
First of all, I'm disappointed no one picked Peter Jackson as Santa Claus and Hot Fuzz. I mean, that's clearly the superior choice. But
get it, Malcolm. You want to be an answerer.
That being said, I was going back and forth throughout this matchup. Like, it was a really tough one to call. Just for the hair, I'm going Joe. I think he managed to sort of counter all of Chad's points, and just kind of made it that razor thin close that, like, they're both essentially arguing the same thing. Like they're both sort of arguing that someone else has helped the Santa inspire them. So that kind of cancelled it out. But I think Joe kind of got a little bit more out there than Chad, but it was definitely a good match.
All right. Thank you, judges. I'm going to go ahead and send you guys to the back as we're going to go ahead and bring in our competitors, and we will move on to question number 2. And what is the furthest thing we could go to get away from Christmas? Let's go to some scary shit. Although, if we're being real, a fat man coming down your chimney, leaving you presents and eating your food is kind of scary.
Also, if we're being real, they're like, what, 7 weeks apart? So they're not that far apart, really.
I guess on the calendar, they're technically not that far apart. But with that said, guys, we are going for, we've talked about this genre before, obviously, but I decided let's go for the big one. Let's see what we got here. The question is, what is the best horror film of all time? And as you guys will see in just a second, I sent this question out, I got my answers, and immediately went, well, we can do a replay of this, eliminating one factor that remains in both of these guys' choices. But I do think they picked great films, no matter the coincidence, so we're going to go ahead and get to it. With that said, Joe, you are up first this time, so I will bring it up, and it will start when you begin speaking.
Well, I mentioned Kurt Russell before, and he's going to come up again. I think when it comes to horror, you want your audience to really feel it. You want palms sweaty, knees weak, arms heavy. Hey, maybe even some vomit on your sweater already. But also, I think the movie needs to be good. And that's where a lot fail. You have movies that provide good jump scares, but offer very little substance. And for me, I think 1982's The Thing has it all. I think it's a remarkable feat of tension, score, great performances, great music, great visuals. And by the end of it, when you leave, you just feel like you've watched something truly special. There's definitely no room for debate here about the director or the composer, for that matter. Spoilers. But for me, I think The Thing is the best horror movie of all time. I think it offers everything. I think it elevates the genre. And I think it's not only the best John Carpenter movie, I think it's the best horror movie of all time.
All right. And that will be time. And I'm just going to say it, Chad, I think you spoiled your pick. It's obvious you went with the John Carpenter film Vampires. But with that said, go ahead and talk about your pick.
The best horror movie ever made is John Carpenter's 1978 masterpiece, Halloween. Ever since Halloween came out, it's been adored by critics and audiences alike. It has a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes and made $60 million on a $300,000 budget to become a highly successful indie film. Halloween has been passed down the generations like an old folktale. The use of cinematography, music, lighting, acting, and character makes Halloween a groundbreaking masterwork of horror. This film launched Jamie Lee Curtis's career. Michael Myers as the Shape is iconic. The score is iconic and really sets the tone. I'm pretty sure John Carpenter probably did it in his basement. You're always searching the screen for the Shape to appear because of the fantastic use of lighting and shot composition. You're in constant anticipation and suspense. Not a scene is wasted. Halloween is small and simple, but has a wide reach in the horror genre. It's the one horror film people return to every single year because it's scary as hell and sticks with you long after you watch it.
All right, that is time on the opening. So there we go, guys. Probably classic horror, one of the most classic horror directors in John Carpenter. We have probably undeniably his two best films chosen. I don't think anyone will doubt that. It's just which one is better. With that said, Joe, back to you for The Thing.
Okay, first of all, I'm not going to sit here and argue that the Halloween is a bad movie, because Halloween is not a bad movie. It's a fantastic movie and probably one of the best slasher films there are. But when it comes to horror, I think The Thing is elevated because it's not just the creature itself, it's the effect it has on the characters. You know, with Michael Myers, it's not much of a criticism, but you get the same thing every time. He stalks, he kills, he moves on to the next one. The people around him running and screaming. But The Thing is deeper than that. You know, showing the characters in that isolated space, not knowing who to trust, turning on each other. That's where I believe The Thing has the edge on Halloween. It's not just the villain, it's the effect of the villain. You know, it's what it does to our heroes. You know, it's easy to be scared of something that's going to kill you. That's natural. But to see what it can do to the people you are trying to be safe with, and how you could be in as much danger from your friends as your enemies, I think that's truly terrifying. You know, the distrust you see among the team at the Arctic Research Station, the way they sort of turn on each other, that makes The Thing extra scary, because it's not just the thing that's stalking them. It's not just the thing that's trying to kill them. It's each other. It's not just one of them could be the thing, it could kill me. It's one of them could think I'm the thing and try and kill me. And that's where the distrust comes from. That's where the tension in this movie really comes from. It still has those great jump scares that have the substance to them, unlike a lot of horror movies where the jump scare is, oh, someone touching your shoulder, and, oh, it's just your friend, don't worry about it. The jump scares come from the creature feature. They come from the visual effects. They come from giving the guy the pads on the defibrillator and your hands disappearing in the thing visually, and even the look of it, because of those practical effects. It's truly terrifying. And it's not just the creature itself. It is the effect it has on the characters around it and what it does to them in that isolated space. Everything about it. It's not just the thing and who it's trying to go after. It's the setting. It's the darkness, the cold, everything about it.
And time. Scary. All right, Chad, back to you for 2 minutes.
Before 1978, you had nothing like Halloween. Its influence in horror is unparalleled. It popularized an entire subgenre in horror, the slasher film. It created many tropes we still see today. It came out during the rise of serial killers like Gacy and Bundy, and used that to tap into what people are afraid of most: darkness and the unknown. A killer with no motivation, a shape seemingly everywhere and nowhere at the same time. That's why he's the shape in Halloween's script instead of Michael Myers. He's really just a faceless vessel for evil in the world. Halloween hit the zeitgeist and became a cultural phenomenon. Halloween says, even in the precious, safe suburbs, you're not safe. Safety is an illusion. Nice, safe suburbia will make you unprepared for ensuing chaos if you let your guard down. You get amazing characters with Dr. Loomis and Laurie Strode, the original Final Girl. You fall in love with these characters and you want them to succeed. The writing is brilliant. The shape disappears at the end, but his breathing is everywhere. It's true when Tommy Doyle says, "You can't kill the boogeyman." Halloween set the standard for horror films, and it hasn't been topped. Halloween became the archetype of the slasher that other films would mimic and pay homage to for decades to come. The Thing is a good remake. Its effects still hold up for sure. But with Carpenter's larger budget, he focused more on set design and effects, but forgot to focus on the character and story. The characters are just carbon copies of each other, just waiting to venture off and be copied or killed. They could have foiled this thing with a buddy system. The pacing of the movie is also just not great. It feels so long, but it's not long. The Thing veers too much into sci-fi at times that it doesn't feel 100% true horror. It's good, but it doesn't come close to having the same gravitas and influence that Halloween does.
Are you conceding your time?
Yep.
Okay. All right. All right. Once again, I'll add 11 seconds back on that clock, but it will start ticking once you guys begin speaking.
Yes, Halloween hit the cultural zeitgeist in a massive way, but and it is a movie that people revisit every Halloween. But it's called Halloween. It's the first thought that comes into your head. You say the thing. The thing may not have hit the zeitgeist in the same way, but it's one of the most common movies to go. You haven't seen The Thing? It's one of the most common things. And like you said, Halloween created a separate genre because it was scary, but it had to create that separate genre and became the slasher film because horror itself needed to be elevated, and it still needed to be elevated, and that's what The Thing did, and that's what I think John Carpenter. It shows that John Carpenter learned from what he did before and managed to improve on it. And you say about the character work, but you say about the character work, but one of the other finest horror movies that was a very close choice for me is Alien. And like in Alien, and like Sigourney Weaver, like Ripley, MacReady is not the main focus. He's not the leader of the place, but he rises to it. MacReady rises into that role, and I just think the thing is more elevated because it's not just the villain you're presented with that is the scary thing. It's the effect it has on the people you're trying to be safe with. Could turn on you at any minute, or you could turn on them, and that turning on your friends, something so scary that will make you turn on your friends, is truly terrifying.
I mean, it's not like it hasn't been done before, though. Like they did it in Invasion and the Body Snatchers. They did it with a lot of other movies. They did it. Well, they didn't do it exactly the same way in the original The Thing, but this is a remake, and I just think some of the things that the original did was kind of a little bit better. Like it had actual character stuff in it. There were women in it. There were actual there's an actual story in that one. And I feel like this one, it kind of got lost in the shuffle because John Carpenter gets that huge budget, and then he's like, okay, well, now I need to focus really hard on the effects, and the effects are so good that it's it's really all there is to it, kind of and it's just it just feels like, in Halloween, you actually have a full-fledged story. You can watch Halloween and pick out little things that you never saw before because the writing is so brilliant in this movie. You can see that Michael Myers actually eats dogs. You just pick up these little lines that they dropped in there. And I think that's a credit to having Deborah Hill and Carpenter co-write the script. And with this one, with Bill Lancaster writing the script, he really only had Bad News Bears and stuff to go off of. He didn't really have much.
Well, let's break down
in his arsenal.
Let's break down that it has an actual story, because let's be honest, Halloween is this guy's going to come and try and kill you because reasons, and we've got to try and run and get away and stop him. But you look at the story of The Thing, we are trapped in this place. There is something trying to kill us. We have to try and get away, but also because it can mutate, because it can transform, we have to also stop it because it can't get out and get anyone else. So let's just put on the story level, they're probably on an equal footing with The Thing.
I disagree with that.
I think The Thing is visually more scary. The image of the shape coming for you is scary, but towards the end of the movie, it's still Michael Myers in a Shatner mask and a boiler suit with a knife. It's Michael. It's Michael when he attacks you. The Thing, it could be anyone, and when it does reveal itself, it's constantly changing its shape, giving yourself something more to be scared of. It's one thing, but it has so many different images that each of those images is terrifying and stays with you.
In The Thing, you're kind of always kind of waiting for something, and it takes a while for it to get there. But once it does, you see it and you go, "Oh, that's really crazy," but okay. It's not really that scary, and you can just kind of flamethrow it a little bit. With Michael, you never know he's there because he's so methodical. And the thing about it too that makes him so creepy is that he'll come from anywhere. Just the way they set up these shots. And so he comes out of nowhere. But the other thing too is there's the terrifying sequence where Jamie Lee Curtis is running and she's screaming bloody murder. You would think he would run at her. He doesn't, because he's so methodical.
You look at the blood testing scene in The Thing. The blood testing,
he knows he's going to get to her.
The blood testing scene in The Thing is just as tense, just as terrifying, but also it has that added effect because it could come from anywhere. You don't know where it's going to come from.
Alien is a better sci-fi movie than The Thing, and that's what The Thing is ultimately, a sci-fi movie. You are so scared in Halloween because you can connect with characters like Laurie showed. They feel like
you don't even see the effect it has on Laurie until the sequels. You don't really see the effect it has on her.
And time.
You see the effect the creature has on The Thing throughout.
Well, Joe, you are first up to close, so you'll have 1 minute to continue your point. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I think we're dealing with two movies here with a lot of similarities, even down to director and composer. But the difference with The Thing is that it doesn't just make its villain scary; it makes its hero scary too. Even when the killer is not around, you still are in danger. Even the ending has more edge. With Halloween, you are left knowing that Michael is still out there. You just don't know where. In The Thing, not only can you not be sure if the thing is still there, it might just be your only friend or the only one you think you can trust, and that is what's truly terrifying. You know, the thing can also come from anywhere because it could be any of them. You have that blood testing scene where they're testing the blood and you think it's going to come from one of the characters. One of the characters is going to react, but it doesn't. It comes out of the tube itself. That is a shocking moment and it's a surprising moment. I think Halloween is a fine slasher. It's one of the best slashers, but I think The Thing as a horror movie is far more elevated, and because it shows the effect that this is having on the characters. The Halloween does that, but it's just a lot of screaming and running. You don't see the effect it has on Laurie Strode until the sequels, especially the newer sequels. It definitely shows that psychological effect, but throughout The Thing, you are seeing the psychological effect it is having on these characters and how they are treating each other and the betrayal, and that's what makes it scary.
All right, Chad, back to you for the last minute. Time starts when you speak.
I don't buy this whole thing where you just basically say Halloween is just a slasher movie. It created so many other slasher movies down the line. That is true. It had a mega influence, but it is an elevated horror movie. It's one that people go back to because it's such a fantastic movie. You would think a movie like this would get lost in the shuffle, but it doesn't because it's so brilliantly made with all the shot composition, everything that they do in this movie. You can pick up little things in this movie as you go along. You can't really do that in The Thing. You see it once and then it's done. The average horror viewer wants to feel terror and wants to have their space invaded, but they don't want to do this by having it invaded from space. To have your space invaded by something closer to home, something in your backyard, is truly terrifying. They took a William Shatner mask for like a few dollars and made it one of the most terrifying, iconic masks ever. They've never been able to replicate this, no matter how big their budget is. The Thing is so high budget and polished, it's not relatable or realistic, making it not as scary as Halloween. I'm not scared of a spider head thing. I am scared of a maniac whose sole goal is to end lives of others for no reason. Sadly, monsters like that exist. The Shape is definitely more terrifying than The Thing, and Halloween is a masterpiece.
And time. All right. Gonna go ahead and send you guys to the back as I bring in our judges for this one. Malcolm has returned from the public to the safety of his own home. We're glad you made it back alive. And on this one, Kevin, I go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main thing that sold you?
My vote is going to go on this one to Chad. Joe did these are both great points and both great picks. And Joe made a good point about how The Thing is scary because friends were enemies. And the scares are more visual, but I think Chad fought back on that by saying they put a lot of their budget into the visuals, and The Thing probably could have been beaten better by like a buddy system, and Joe didn't really fight back on that. So I'm going to go with Chad.
All right, so the first vote goes to Chad. Malcolm, I go to you. Who does your vote go to, and what sold you?
Yeah, this was another tough battle. But I mean, ultimately, sort of, like Joe really struck back at Halloween, just kind of like saying that a lot of the impact came in the sequel. So because of that, I'm going to go with Joe.
All right, so once again, we are 1 vote to 1 vote. JD, you are the split this time. I go to you, as concise as you can hit it for me. Who gets your vote, and what was the main thing that sold you on them?
Why? Just why did you have to choose me? Anyways, this was tough. Even tougher than the first one. God. Okay. All right, I'm going to go with Joe by a hair. Just a hair. Both of them had points that weren't really countered back, and both had great counters. I think where Joe got me was, I think the fact that, I think this is what he was really trying to say, was that The Thing, it's not important how scary what the creature looks like, it's what he does to everybody else. And I think that was the argument that really struck a chord with me at the end of the day, and I think that's why Joe is going to get my point.
All right. So with that, judges, I'm going to go ahead and send you guys to the back as I will bring in our competitors, and we will move on to question number 3. And we have 2 very solid trivia players here. Obviously, they're both they're partners. They must feel good about each other's skills. And we know Joe's good at geek shit, and I'm sure Chad likes geek shit despite not playing it as much as Joe does. So let's talk about some geek shit.
This guy's a wizard at Wizarding World.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot coming from you.
Well, it's not Wizarding World, unfortunately. It is something else. But the question on the table
I got to choose this. I'm not giving him an extra strength.
What is the best Star Wars film that is a prequel? Now, note the wording of that question, and as I put there, this question includes anything that is technically a prequel to the original film. So we have, of course, the prequel trilogy, the Clone Wars film, God forbid somebody pick that, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and Solo, a Star Wars story. All 6 films on the table, just to give them a bit more variety, not stuck with just the 3 films, in which I'd say most people would say there's probably an obvious favorite and an uphill battle. But these guys could pick whichever they wanted. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and go on to it. And Chad, you are up first on this one. So the timer will start when you begin speaking.
A great prequel film should stand on its own, but also serve as the film or films for which it is a prequel. Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, does this and more. Revenge had a big challenge. It had to complete the prequel trilogy. It had to set up events that happened in the OG Star Wars trilogy, and it had to be a great movie on its own. And boy, I think Revenge of the Sith does this all very well. The writing, the effects, the action, the tension, the lightsaber battles are all excellent and still hold up today. Revenge of the Sith feels uniquely Star Wars. It improves on a rough first 2 films and does what Rise of Skywalker really couldn't do and sticks the landing. It has yet another fantastic score from the iconic John Williams. It features one of the greatest arcs in all of Star Wars to give us one of the most iconic villains in film history, Darth Vader. Revenge of the Sith is a really good movie at 80% and Rotten Tomatoes, and it is the best prequel in the Star Wars saga.
All right, that'll be time on the opening. Joe, your round starts when you begin speaking.
The Star Wars prequels. Words that since 1999 have meant somewhere, somehow, nerds are arguing about something. Hi, right here. With the prequels, there are certainly 2 that I think the audience really responded to, Revenge of the Sith and Rogue One. And to my mind, there is no better Star Wars prequel than Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I think with Revenge of the Sith, you have a movie that everyone wanted and the audience was desperate to see. And with Rogue One, you have a movie that no one knew they wanted that blew its audience away. So much so that it is widely considered to be one of the best, or the best thing that Disney has done with Star Wars, movie-wise. I think it also had an uphill battle. It had to introduce us to new characters. Live in a world that had already been established through, by this point, 8 movies with the Clone Wars. And I think it does it in a remarkable way that gives us fantastic characters, fantastic new things, visual effects, but also is 100% truly Star Wars. And as most of the review said, it truly put the war into Star Wars.
And time. All right. And just for the sake of our competitor's mental state, it was not selected, so we don't have to refer to Clone Wars as a real film anymore. You don't have to think that hard about it. It's okay.
I play trivia. Yes, I do.
Okay, well, that's fair. We can blame Kevin when we bring him on later. With that said, Chad, back to you for 2 minutes.
When you watch the original trilogy, the biggest questions that go through your mind are likely, how did Darth Vader come to be? What caused him to go to the dark side? Then the prequel trilogy came out and sought to answer these questions. Unfortunately, the prequels did not get off to a hot start, but Revenge changed everything. It managed to blend dark tones with light camp to give us a great Star Wars feel. It gives you an amazing Anakin arc all in one movie. Anakin is completely different at the beginning than he is at the end, and it's earned. You get to see the complete manipulation of Anakin by Palpatine. The Jedis are set up to be these figures who fight for good, but they are so flawed by their dedication to tradition, they fuck everything up. They set up the conditions for Anakin to have his great downfall by feeling betrayed and wanting to save Padme. Anakin thinks he is doing the right thing by going to the dark side, and then it's too late. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You also get some great political intrigue in the movie where Palpatine extends his reign into an empire. Things change from democratic to monarchistic very quickly. You get the fantastic line, "So this is how liberty dies," with thunderous applause. Very relevant to today. You also get the great Darth Plagueis scene, one of the best in Star Wars, with the legendary line, "Not from a Jedi." Revenge of the Sith is the best. The destruction of the Death Star is so cool, it can be chalked up to an oversight. You don't really care why there was a flaw in the design. Rogue One decides to fix this plot hole anyways. It's an unnecessary, uninteresting film. The characters are bland. You learn nothing about them. They all seem set up to die. They accomplish their mission, and then they die. It's very predictable. The stakes don't feel real because you don't care about these characters. The movie is also just so dark and polished. It doesn't really feel like Star Wars. The humor feels forced, and the movie looks great and has some fun moments. But ultimately, it was just filler in between the big installments of the sequel trilogy. I know a lot of people dug the film, but there's a lot of other films that some people are really high on for a while, and then they rewatch it and they go, "Oh wait, there's actually really nothing to these other these movies." Yeah.
All right, that'll be time as it runs out. Joe, 2 minutes for you.
I think Revenge of the Sith is the best of the prequel trilogy, but suffers because of what came before it. And it rushed the most important part. There is 9 minutes in between. It's not the Jedi way. He must stand trial. And there are too many of them. What are we going to do? 9 minutes between him trying to save and be a good Jedi and between him killing younglings, And without George Lucas writing, you can actually get some good dialogue, which is what you get with Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And you say there's no backstories, but, Cassie and Jin, Bodhi are all given backstories. And Baze and Chirrut are also shown as are given that mysterious edge, and you say it's predictable, but in a Star Wars movie that introduces all these characters, it takes a big risk by killing everyone off, and I think it pulls it off superbly. I think Revenge of the Sith has so much to do because of those 2 films that came before it. It has because they spent so much time getting into the world and all that, which had already been established by the original trilogy. I think Revenge of the Sith has so much to do, it can't execute it all. It spends too long basically getting everyone into their starting positions for A New Hope. It has almost as many endings as Return of the King. I think Rogue One still had an immense task as to introduce characters, give them all something that makes the audience connect with them, and then kill them all off in a meaningful way. And also still connect to A New Hope. And I think it executes all that in such a brilliant way. I think the score from Michael Giacchino is phenomenal. Your Father Would Be Proud is a really beautiful piece of music, whether in Star Wars or in any other movie. I think it's a really beautiful piece of music. And and I think the final half an hour is some of the finest filmmaking in Star Wars history. The final half an hour of Rogue One is fantastic. The way it blends the old stuff with the new stuff, the pilots from A New Hope all sort of having their moments and like that, and then you get that scene in the hallway. You finally really truly learn, unlike in Revenge of the Sith, why the entire galaxy feared Darth Vader. I think Revenge of the Sith is a good movie, but on analysis, it's a very rushed movie that is struggling to do the work of what at least 2 prequels should have done.
All right, and as Joe's 2 minutes wrap up there, we are on to the 4-minute open debate. The timer will restart when the first person speaks.
Revenge of the Sith is good, but it's comparatively good compared to the Phantom
Menace
and Attack of the Clones. And also, it had 10 years to stand on its own as the last Star Wars movie we've got. And because it was good
and it used
the last 2 before, it had those 10 years to gestate and really go, okay, yeah, I suppose better than the other two. Yeah, it's good.
No,
And,
no, it's
the fact
far
that
better
Rogue
than
One
the
is not
other
predictable.
two. It's actually a great movie. I mean, you kind of compared it to Return of the King, and I agree. I won't say maybe it's that good, but it's
I compared the amount of
definitely
endings it has to
the
Return of the King.
best
The
prequel that
only
we've ever
major
seen.
criticism of Return
Because
of the
we
King is its
actually get really
similarity.
great characters in Revenge of the Sith. We don't get any in Rogue One. There's none that you go like, I want to see that. Oh wait, they're dead. I can't see that character again. And there's no weight to these characters.
That's why we're getting a Cassian Andor show.
Okay, fine, but you don't care that. Well, you need it because they need to actually have something with that character. They're going to have a show to be like,
been in this fight since I was 6 years old.
We didn't give him anything in this movie to work with, so now we have to have a show so we can actually flesh this character out. But all the other ones are dead, and they didn't even do anything that cool. It was kind of a weird, depressing movie. Like, no one wants to see like a movie that's. If you do want to see a movie that's really dark, I would go with Revenge of the Sith rather than Rogue One because you do care about Anakin and you want to see like what happens to him because like from a kid he was told that he's so brilliant, he's a great Force user, he's gonna change everything, and then you have the Jedi telling him no, actually that's not the case. It gives it so much layers to Darth Vader and Anakin as a character and also the Jedi in general. So it adds to a lot of that story. There's nothing added from Rogue One. You don't get anything from there that you're like, oh, but this adds great stuff to the lore. And this adds so much to the entire story as a whole. That's why it suffers as a prequel. It's just kind of a movie that people watch. They like a lot of the scenes, one dude is really cool when he fights, but then he like slowly walks and uses the force to bounce off the bullets, and then he does the switch, and then he dies. It's like, why are these people just like choosing to die? Like Saw Gerrera could have joined them on the ship. He doesn't. He just sits there and dies because
that's the point. It's the point. I think you're focusing on what's presented on the surface and not actually delving deeper. The thing with the characters in Rogue One is that it's about showing the sacrifices. It's about delving deeper into the heart of the rebellion.
Really
and that final scene with Vader is about why Vader was so feared. Because to that point, there's no real establishment of how people exactly knew who Darth Vader was. And the issue with Revenge of the Sith is that, and I've said it before, it's rushed because of the issues of the other movie. It was forced to rush into those things. To have 9 minutes to have a 9-minute gap between your main character being good and then evil is atrocious. It's so rushed. The benefit, and also one of the benefits of Rogue One, is that there is no Jar Jar Binks. He may only be in a very brief scene in Revenge of the Sith, but he is not in Rogue One at all, and that's fantastic.
But he's not really much in Revenge of the Sith, and when he's there, it at least makes it a complete kind of thing with the prequels because he's now like established as like a big figure. But he's not annoying. He doesn't detract from Revenge of the Sith at all. It doesn't matter that he's not in Rogue One. There's actually the only like fun character is K2SO, and those jokes just feel so out of place because the rest of the movie is so bleak and weird and just like kind of cold. And Star Wars shouldn't be cold like that. Star Wars is silly and campy, but also dark. It blends the tone so well in that movie. And I just don't understand why they had to rush this movie. They had like 2 different directors, 2 different composers. This movie just got in like production
even the main villain choose the scenery. Ian McDiarmid choose the scenery, while Ben Mendelsohn is reserved and chillingly evil in that movie.
Wait, who?
There's so much to do and so much to connect, and it doesn't execute it all at the right time. And it's only the only way you can compare it to Return of the King is by comparing it to Return of the King's biggest criticism is that it had far too many endings.
I think Anakin has one of the greatest arcs in Star Wars in this thing. It doesn't matter the time.
All right, we're going to go on to our closings. Chad, you have 1 minute left on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Rogue One just doesn't feel that much like Star Wars. It looks great, and Darth Vader sequence is badass. I'll give you that. But the characters are not interesting or developed like at all. That's why we need that show because, maybe people might want to see these characters more if they can like actually get some stuff from them. But like you also get like the weird Tarkin and Leia CGI, and those feel so uncanny valley. It takes you out of the film. And then there's like a morality issue with that. It's like, why couldn't you just why don't you do it like where Ghostbusters: The Afterlife did it, where they don't talk and they're just there. That would have been maybe okay. But Revenge of the Sith actually carries all the emotional weight and character development for the amazing Star Wars characters like Anakin and Padme. You get to see Darth Vader's tragic spiral to the dark side only to be saved by his son Luke later in the OG trilogy. You have more weight when Luke helps Anakin come back to the light. It makes Anakin's death that much more emotional and heavy because you know he was a person who just wanted to was best for his mother. And Padme, you can see how he would have been betrayed by the Jedi and completely surrendered to the dark side. Revenge of the Sith is the best.
All right. Joe, back to you. Final minute on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I think all those things you mentioned about Anakin are things that are established throughout the prequel trilogy, especially with regards to his mother, not necessarily that are unique to Revenge of the Sith. I think Revenge of the Sith is the best of the prequel trilogy, but it's not exactly a tall mountain to climb. It suffers from the poor preparation of the previous two and rushes into so many important moments that it ends up a bit of a mess. Rogue One, on the other hand, handles its important moments with care, tells a story in a smooth and cohesive manner, and ends with what may be one of the finest third acts in all of Star Wars. Revenge of the Sith is one of the best prequels, but Rogue One is one of the best Star Wars movies and easily the best prequel. I think it establishes its characters well, gives them all small moments to establish their backstory. Obviously, you have everything with Jyn in the beginning, but also you have those moments from Cassian Andor. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. You know, he does kill someone at the beginning, but that's to save himself because he knows he's in this fight. He knows he's in this war. But then it moves on because he spares Galen Erso, who eventually dies anyway. But the thing is, it's the way it all works around it, and it's executed all fine. Revenge of the Sith rushes into its important moments just to save itself from the errors made in the previous two, and it's rushed.
All right, that will be time on the argument. Another great debate, guys. I'm going to go ahead and send both of you to the back, and I will bring in our judges. All right, and we will go to you guys. Malcolm, I go to you first. As concise as you can get it for me, who sold you and what was the main thing that did?
Yeah. First, I'm going to erase all my personal bias. But this was another really close match. And I was going to have to go to Joe because I think he managed to throw out plenty of good arguments about sort of Rogue One, sort of showing us a backstory we never knew we wanted. Like he brought up about the prequel, sort of the first two before Revenge of the Sith were kind of rushed, and it just didn't feel earned. But just one of those ones like Joe gets the point.
All right, JD, I go to you next. Who gets your vote and what sold you?
Again, it was another close one for me. I'm actually going to go with Chad this round. These both are actually in my top 5, but ultimately, I think because Rogue One it is more of a clear-cut choice in the eyes of the audience. I feel like Joe sometimes kind of tried to coast on that, whereas I think Chad had to fight harder and make a more complete argument, and I kind of was just really sold on Anakin's story and his counters about Rogue One not really having characters. Anyways, that's that's what it came down to, and that was my point.
All right, so it's 1-1, which means Kevin, I go to you next. Who gets your vote and what sold you?
As much as I think this was an excellent argument, I love both films. My vote on this one is going to go to Joe. Chad, I feel like spent too much time talking about the prequels as a whole and didn't really hone in on Revenge of the Sith as its own film. You just kind of got in a loop talking about Anakin's full arc. Joe really talked about the right stuff. The last half on Scarif, a half hour on Scarif, and Yavin 4, and the hallway scene with Vader, the sacrifices made and making the fear of the Empire. So it goes to Joe for me.
All right, judges, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and send you guys into the back because. And your winner by a final knockout score of 3-0, it is Joe Hot Fuzz Farrelly coming in big. And Joe, I think nothing indicative. Actually, what I'm about to say is indicative of the player that Chad is, because you've had 2 solid wins, obviously, against Jake, against Kevin. You've held the game pretty well there. But I would say just off performances, Chad is probably easily the toughest opponent you have played thus far, and you continue to show how much better you get every time by this being the knockout that's on your record. Now you've joined some of the top players that have already achieved knockouts in the previous round of the tournament. How are you feeling about that?
It feels good. A lot of prep goes into these, working out what your argument is, where you're hinging your argument on, and also where you think your opponent's going to attack you and how you're going to counter it. Chad put up an amazing fight. Full disclosure, I would have given him the point for the Halloween one had I been on the judging one. I thought his argument was fantastic, and it shows that, because there were no clean sweeps for me in this match, and it shows the kind of player he is. But it's always good to get a win and to have people validate your opinions, basically.
No, absolutely. That is kind of exactly what it is. It's a chance of luck and people saying, yeah, you're right. So you are far from done in this. Obviously, as people will remember, because Joe is the honorary champ and he was a champ that never got a chance to defend. In addition to letting him keep the title, I also offered him a little thing that I call a champ's token, which meant at any point in the tournament, if he lost, he could have activated that to then become the official champion again and defend in a title match. However, you have progressed into the semifinals, and as I've said kind of briefly before, and we'll be explaining more and more as we go through these matches, in order to kind of make this big a tournament worthwhile, because it is going to take so much of the initial few months of this show, we are using the tournament to make multiple contenders, which means anyone that makes it to the semifinals, if you lose in the semifinals or the finals, you will be given, quicker than most, a second chance opportunity to play back in for a title. So between potentially winning the tournament, going out in the late stages, or even activating your champ's token, you have plenty of routes to get to a title at this point. But the road does not get any easier, as you will be playing the winner of the first match that airs when we come back from our Christmas break. It is the, as we're jokingly calling it, the Full Metal exhibition between Jay Burns and Amaru Moses. Obviously, one of those guys I know you are very close with, and I'm sure Jay's a good guy too. So how are you feeling about that, and who would you look forward to seeing?
It's been a while since I've seen Rue. Oh, I miss that guy. My old teammate. I like being on a team with Chad. Rue was my first teammate, so this is it. And he's gone on to do so many amazing things. But Jay's been like a mainstay in this community for such a long time, and I've done a lot of behind the scenes stuff with him, training and study sessions and that sort of thing. But if anyone's been watching the Jack of All Trivia Geek Tournament, may know that there may be a certain geek title match coming up in which it's me against Jay Burns. So and I don't think I actually have a competitive match one-on-one against him in anything. So, and I have here the very first geek title match. I played Rue. That's a really tough one, because like I said, it'd be a new experience to play against Jay in something, but it would also be it also would be really nice to see Rue again and to take him on in something, not just study with him.
Fair enough. So either way, Joe is happy with that matchup and also stressing to some level. But Joe, it has been great seeing you once again. Obviously, you don't go out defending the title, but I feel like this is a dominant performance to end the literal end of the year on. It's been great seeing you. I will send you to the back, and we'll see you next year.
Oh yeah.
As we'll go ahead and bring in his competitor, Mr. Chadwick Webb. And again, as I have said to players before, especially tonight, it's as Joe said, it is a knockout, but it was a split decision. That means every single time you had somebody with you, you had somebody on the ropes of picking you, and it just broke in a way that makes it look the worst from you. So how are you feeling?
All right. I mean, it's one of those things like, I prep for these like really, really, really hard. I watched all the films. I know some people don't, and that works for them, but for me, I'm like, well, I gotta have like a good knowledge base of these and stuff. I think sometimes I struggled a little bit maybe in the back and forth. That's something I definitely have to work on. Did I think I was gonna get knocked out today? No, but I knew I was going up against Joe, so I knew that I had my work cut out against me, or work cut out for me. I mean, but you know that it just is what it is. It's there's so many variables in this game. I love the game. I love this iteration of Movie Battleground. I love judging. I love playing. Maybe one time I can host at some point. I'm looking to be a part of this a lot, and this is definitely not the end for me because I'll play as long as you guys will have me. And I want to play like some of my other friends. Like Joe is a really good dude. Like he's a teammate in the league. He's a great teammate. He's a really classy guy. Like losing to him is just very classy. He even said he'd give me a point if he had his way. And yeah, exactly like you were talking about. I got points from people. It just never stacked up to where I got two in a row on any given question. And it's just sometimes that's just how it happens.
Absolutely. And of course, at the end of these semifinals, we're gonna have at least 4 people coming out of this 1-0 bracket with a 2-1, or in the case of if Tyler loses his match, 1-1 record. So there will be plenty of people for you to go up against, certainly as soon as we get back into scheduling. But Joe gets to go out on the extremely happy note that he is into the semifinals, and this is the end of the year. And I want to give you a little something before you go out. I want you to put that Santa hat back on. All right, put that Santa hat back on.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Jesus. All right. Calm down.
Put the fuck on now. All right. So, especially during that first question, that Christmas question, you had a little twinkle in your eye. You seemed like you were really loving talking about that one.
Uh-huh.
And you just said you'd like to host. So how about I give you a little Christmas present? We have this little thing, Christmas exhibition match coming up, and you're not competing in it, but would you like a different role?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll see that in about a week. See you, Chad.
Right.
Thank you for being here. I'll go ahead and send you to the back. Oh.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, it'll be closer in a week's time. Go ahead and send them to the back. And what a way to end the year out, guys. And I do want to take a quick second before we close out. First, I want to thank everyone involved in tonight's match. We have 3 great judges backstage in the form of JD Domash, Kevin Poss, and Malcolm Lay. I want to thank my great competitors, Chad Webb and Joe Farrelly, for playing tonight. But I do want to take a quick second, since this is kind of technically the end of regular matches for the season. We got the fun exhibitions coming up, but this is the end of the bulk of it for the year. And I just want to take a second to say thank you to every one of you, because without you guys here, we would not be going. Obviously, as I kind of referenced to, Joe won a title, and just the place of where the people who were running the show were at the time and where the community kind of was at the time, the show just kind of died, and it went on its deathbed for like 8 months. It went into a coma. And I had this idea of maybe people would be interested. And overnight, one Facebook post got me 29 signatures to restart a league. So I sent out a couple personal invites. We got it to an even 32. And 7 months later, here we are. And it is because of you guys, whether you're a player, a judge, or somebody who just watches and participates through the Facebook page or the YouTube, that you guys are back in this and that we are back here. And I do look forward to a successful year next year as we continue to grow, expand, and finally reach the end of this fucking tournament and have ourselves a champion. But with that said, for the year that was 2021, since this is the last official match, I do want to thank, again, every competitor who has played with us this year, whether you're returning next year or not. Thank you, guys. I want to thank every single judge who has judged for us this year, whether it was 1 time, 10 times, or whatever the number Chris Diaz has. Thank you for being here. And I want to thank the 4 guys who helped me the most behind the scenes, that being Matt Beer, of course, Henry Sanchez, Kevin Poss, and Jacob West, who I call my producers. Without these guys, I know it looks like I do a lot by myself, and that's because I do, but there are moments where I need somebody to be there to do something, to support something, to host something, to write something that you guys don't always see. And every time I need something, one of these four guys comes through in the clutch and makes sure it gets done. And without them, the little pieces that I can't catch would fall through the cracks. And having guys like them to back me up is why this can run as smoothly as it can with so few people. So thank you to everybody. And on behalf of everyone at Movie Battleground, we will see you next year. Well, sort of. Fun matches next, and then we'll be back. Take care, everybody.